Alright guys, today I'm going to talk a little bit about powder coating your lead bullets. Why you want to and the cheap, easy way to do it. Alright guys, so powder coating lead bullets. Why would you want to do that? So, when you start out casting lead bullets, I've got some Lee 30 caliber bullets. These are a great 300 blackout bullet. I've used them quite a bit on the 300 blackout and 300 221 fireball that I've shot, and you know they're an inexpensive plinking bullet. If you want to shoot 300 blackout in a way that you can actually afford to shoot a fair amount of it, this is the way to do it. Now, what a lot of people worry about with lead is, of course, lead fouling. Now, if you properly size your lead to your bore, you should have very minimal fouling, especially if you're using a good lubricant. But, understandably, with an AR-15, you add a gas system, and you're adding a little bit higher velocities, potentially, if you're not loading subsonic. So, there can be the concern of, what if I still get leading, or what if I get leading in the gas system? Now, I can say with these lead Lee bullets, and the 300 blackout barrel that I have from KAK Industries, I have not had a problem with leading, and I have not seen any lead buildup in the carrier. But granted, I also haven't gone out and shot 500 to 1,000 in a day without cleaning, so it's certainly a possibility. So with this powder coating, what it does is it basically provides a coating on the bullet similar to some of these other coatings like High-Tech or Moly, but the powder coat is very inexpensive. Now, it's probably not as durable as some of these other coatings either. But the nice thing is you can do it at home. You can get it very cheaply. So you're going to cast your lead just like any other time. One of the things you're going to want to do is make sure you keep your finger oils and other grime off of the bullets as you're casting them, because you're going to want the powder coat to stick. Now, there's a couple different ways of doing the powder coat. Obviously, this powder coat is designed to be fired through a specific applicator gun and coated onto a projectile. If you do a search online of powder coating with the spray gun, you'll see some very, very beautiful bullets. And I'll be the first to admit that this method is easier, but it doesn't look nearly as nice. There is a method that maybe I'll go into later that adds some BBs to the process that often gets you a little better coat. Maybe we can talk about that later. But honestly, I found that even with these coatings, even though they may not look the best, they still protect the barrel against leading. They reduce the leading, and they reduce the smoke that you get from firing the actual lead lubricant that a lot of people use. Some lubricants smoke more than others. I typically use the Lee Liquid Alox, and that tends to have a fair amount of smoke. So once you have your lead bullets cast, what you're going to do is you're going to buy just some simple Harbor Freight powder coat. So this is the Harbor Freight red powder coat, and from different reviews online, I've heard that the red is the best as far as quality coating from Harbor Freight. If you go with a more expensive variant, then you can typically get a better coat, and you can get a lot more color types than what Harbor Freight offers. But since we're going with the inexpensive route, Harbor Freight, this is only a few dollars, and it will last you for thousands and thousands of bullets. As you can see, I've coated probably 1,500, and I would guess that I've used less than a third of the pound. So what I like to do is I go ahead and pour some of the powder coat into a Tupperware that I can close and seal fairly well, and then I put a little bit, kind of a large handful of bullets in there. You don't have to have a ton of them in there. You want them to have room to kind of move around and knock around. And you're going to shake them up. And it's going to take a little while. You want to shake and shake until they look pretty well coated. Feel free to add a little more powder coat if you need to. I basically keep this Tupperware separate so that it's always got a little bit in there, and then I just add more to it as I need. But you want to keep shaking and shaking until you notice they have a pretty good all-around coat on them. Now, I'll use gloves and transfer them to a screen. Another way that some people have done is they've taken maybe pliers, or especially needle nose pliers or forceps, where they can grind down the ends to a fine point, and then you get very little marking or rubbing off of the powder coat. But either way, you want to get them in there. I find that if I have a little bit of powder coat already on the gloves, that it usually doesn't rub much of it off. But you go ahead, spread them out on the mesh, try not to have them touching each other, and then I like to actually dump out any of the extra powder coat that fell through the mesh onto the tray below. That way it's not just melting and solidifying in the little toaster, and I can put it back into that can and reuse it. Once you've got a batch spread out on some mesh, on some screen, it's going to go into a toaster. Now, I'm not going to give you an exact temperature or amount of time right now. Maybe I'll annotate it in a little bit. Basically, I found that you've got to be fairly careful with this. It's kind of like melting Kydex. You want to give it a little bit of time and a little bit of high temp, but you don't want to overdo it. Now, once it's been in the oven, you're going to bring it out and go ahead and give it time to cool. Once it's cool to the touch, then you should have no problems dumping it into a box and carrying on. Alright guys, thanks. That was powder coating lead bullets the cheap and easy way.